I think that the first time that Mel's children were able to meet, Jackie and Jeff were at Jackie and Chris's wedding. I believe it was the first time they got to meet you and get acquainted. And then the family time they had playing games. There's a whole list of games: dominoes, rummy cube, Skip-Go, Uno. Not Pictionary. We shared. Mel was the entertainment at Pictionary. She liked to watch him play it because apparently that was quite entertaining as we shared at Mel's service. But playing games, she liked to win, and she would even make up her own rules. Okay. And that's a good way to help to win. Make up your own rules. Make sure you can do that. Games like Trivia Pursuit, she only wanted to be part of a team, you see, so she didn't stick out and have to have any kind of ignorance show through. And then there were computer games as well. Getting caught up in Farmville was one. I know my wife was caught up in that for a while. She felt she spent too much time on Farmville or Candy Crush. She even cut herself off for a while on the computer. But she even was able to make her own puzzles. Some of that you can do with the computer as well. So she enjoyed the technical challenges that I know some of the people I was talking about as we sign in on the little pads here. Some of our people not so techie were having a difficult time with that. Ginny probably still would have enjoyed that though. She liked the technical challenge. But her real occupation, well, many, but the nursing. And it was so interesting to share with her about that when she was in the hospital herself now as a patient, and have her have things on the other side of things. But she almost knew too much. You see, nurses, they know too much, and so knowing what's going on. But obstetrics, OB nurse was her main favorite type of nursing. And yet she also then spent some time at the VA, as we talked about, on the medical floor. One of the highlights her family said, though, that and she might not even appreciate at the time, that as an obstetric nurse, the daughter of baseball manager Tony La Russa was born there. He was at that time the manager of Iowa Oaks. A team here later went on to the big league Cardinals, however. And so that was one brush with greatness she might say she had, or that maybe Tony La Russa had, you see. But then with her work on the medical floor of the VA, she worked nights, and that was something that Jackie remembered one Christmas Eve, that she and Jeff had to wait for her to get home before they could open presents. And so that stuck out to her. Ginny shared about what a great life that she had. There was even a time in which she and Mel had even talked about what would happen when they died, and what would happen if it happened now. And she had no regrets. For she had 2 great kids, and 2 great husbands, and a great life. There were no regrets. But she did have plans, you see. She had a bucket list. It was interesting, as Jackie shared, the last movie that she watched with Ginny, not knowing it would be the last, was the bucket list. And not knowing the significance of that. And yet that was a favorite movie for Ginny. And she had her own bucket list, all the things that she wanted to do, yet she had planned. She wanted to visit her brothers and other relatives with trips to Florida, South Dakota, Arizona. She wanted to get her house cleaned. Okay, I think she could probably lay that off the bucket list at least. But I wanted to catch up on house cleaning. Camping and fishing with Perry and Debbie, and she wondered why she and Mel had that conversation, what would happen if they were to die. But she now knew, as we talked in the hospital, she would be okay. She chose to look at the positive. She had that faith that she visited with Neil and with myself about. And when she was in the hospital, at one point her oxygen level dropped suddenly, and a bunch of medical staff descended on her almost in a panic. But she was calm. There was that faith there, but also she knew she was okay. Although she did have problems with her oxygen level, it turned out in that case to be a malfunctioning oxygen line, and so she was not panicked. She had that outlook. She would say, well, I'm not going to worry about it because there's nothing we can do about it. What she could change, she changed. What she couldn't, she faced. Now her fear of swimming was something that the family shared about as well, but that was something she faced also. She grew up near a river, and there were accidents that would happen. And so she had a fear of water, fear of swimming. But she later overcame that fear. She learned how to swim, and she made sure her children learned too, making them take lessons. Swimming lessons, but also music lessons. She had all kinds of lessons for them to learn. one thing on her bucket list that was surprising, I guess to me, maybe it shouldn't be, but because Jenny had such wide, varied interest and kind of an enigma in that way. I believe it was on a July 4th in 2014, not long ago. Mel's daughter Sandy was invited to take a ride on a Harley motorcycle. And she was a little reluctant about it. But Jenny was there and she said it was on her bucket list. She wanted to do it. So they both did. They both took a ride on the Harley. And Mel's family was so appreciative that Jenny would take Mel places when it was so hard for him to get out and about. She would make sure he got out and about. Going to like Prairie Meadows, going to ball games, going on bus trips. When her family would ask how she would manage, she would say, I know people, they'll help us. They'll help us. And surely they did. How could you not want to help Jenny and Mel? And Jenny loved going to Principal Park to watch the games and to watch people. And going to the state fair. She had a tradition of going to the state fair and go with various people. She might even go multiple times a day, it sounded like, but at least almost every day. Going to the state fair. And Jenny was a person who was non-judgmental. She was tolerant of others. She didn't like violence, especially in the movies, so when Perry and Debbie would take them out to the movie, they had to make sure that it was not going to have anything violent in it. But as tolerant as she was, she did not have a tolerance for meanness. She would put distance between herself and those who weren't nice. But in other cases, as we shared earlier, she was very intentional in her relationships with others. She kept in touch, and she kept those relationships going. She was, again, that glue. And as Neil was saying about her being such a good cook, and yet Mel's one to fix that first home-cooked meal for them, I was interested to hear about her making liver and onions was one of her things. And that's not ever been on my list of favorite foods. But it's someone said you haven't had it prepared well. See, I wish I could have tried maybe Jenny's liver and onions, although I still probably would have passed. But stepdaughter Sandy liked liver and onions, and so she would go there and enjoy them because her husband Mark did not care for them, so she got to go and eat them with Jenny. But Jenny was into having balanced food groups. I think that was part of her nursing background. Fruit and vegetables, wanted to make sure all the food groups were there. And she had those favorite specialties as well: banana nut bread, tater tot casserole, potato salad, which she would keep the onions out of when Mel's family were going to eat it. I think, was it Debbie, the one that needed to avoid those onions, and so she would leave them out for Debbie. And to know about being that seamstress, sewing not only doll clothes, but sewing clothes for her children. And so as they grew up, her clothes were sewn for both of them until Jeff balked and rebelled a little bit and wouldn't wear them anymore, so she stopped making those for him, but continued for Jackie, including clothes for her Barbies. But see, Jackie wasn't really much of a Barbie person, so that wasn't something she really needed. But she had those experiences, the beginning experiences too, of a person who sought out support and help in her life. She was active in support groups, as many of you know, and attended a grief support group too to help her deal with the losses that she had in her life. And I think that meant so much to her. And she was supportive for her family too when they had times of need. We talked about her being preceded to death by her brother John. Family said that he had 2 heart transplants before he had passed away, and Jenny would go to visit him and to visit his family and give them a lot of support. There's also discussion about nicknames, you see, and we already said that Jenny went by Jenny, not Virginia. Didn't care for that. So everyone seemed to have some sort of name. Well, even her kids got their names shortened. Jeffrey, although Jeffrey pops up once in a while. I think when maybe he misbehaved a little bit or something like that. I think when some certain words might come out of his mouth, she'd go, "Oh, Jeffrey." But Jeff got quite the ribbing from his friends as they would call him on the phone. Jenny would answer. And so as she called him to the phone, she would yell out in her shrill voice, "Freddie Rodriguez! Phone call!" And I don't know if they ever knew exactly what or how or why she came up with Kratom for Jeff, but of course she's saying this so the friend on the other end could hear this. So then his friends wouldn't let him live that down. But Jackie Jacqueline first shortened down to Jackie, but maybe even shortened to Jack once in a while as well. But Jackie had a nickname for Ginny. She called her Miss Luli. Luli, is that how you say that? Because she was so sweet, she had a nickname Luli. And the OB nurses also kind of had a nickname for her, called her Jenny Lou, because she was so sweet. And within the family then, they had that teasing and enjoyed sharing with one another. I want to interject here the piece that Jeff wrote to be shared in tribute to his mother. As we said earlier, Jeff is one who has the way with words. As many of you know, he's a freelance writer and often writes for a racing magazine. And she loved his writing, and she had stacks of those magazines with articles that he had in there as well. But Jeff has shared these words in tribute to his mother. When I arrived at Mom's house a few weeks ago, I didn't want to disturb her belongings. Her shoes were still by the door, her coat hung on the coat rack, and her lists. Mom wrote down everything, and books were placed neatly around the kitchen and the living room. We expected her to return home, so I wanted everything to be exactly as it was when she left it. After she died, though, I started to straighten and organize things. Under a neat stack of papers on the table next to her favorite chair was a book of poems and prayers. It was open to this passage. Sometimes it is very hard to pray, God, when I feel so absorbed in my pain and in not knowing what all this means. I can't help but ask why. Why me? Why now? In searching for these answers, I somehow feel you are near, helping me to cope with all the changes I experience. Gentle God, help me to be patient. Let me feel that in being sick, I am coming to know you better. Let me care for myself and allow others to care for me so that I may gain strength of spirit once again.